thank you so much for purchasing my butterfly pinning kit. Let's get into it. We are going to unbox the materials. We are going to go over a basic anatomy of a butterfly. We're going to go over do's and don'ts. We are going to go over how to prep a specimen for hydration, and then we will also be pinning the specimen, and this will all be in one video with a brief pause in between parts. It's going to be everything that's in your kit. This is going to include your pinning board, your glassine strips, your 4 butterflies, your pins, your tweezers, your hydration chamber, your napkins, your do's and don'ts, your pinning guide, and your anatomy chart. The pinning board is what you're going to lay the butterfly on once it's hydrated and pin. The glassine strips are to hold down the wings. The pins are to hold down the antenna, to hold down the body, and to also hold down the glassine strips around the wings. The tweezers are optional. You don't really have to use them, but they are very useful for picking up a specimen from your hydration chamber so you don't accidentally break it. Your specimens are obviously there to pin. This is your hydration chamber. It is appropriately sized for the specimens included in this kit. You will need something larger if you purchase larger specimens or if you find something outside. The 3 napkins are going to be used as your material to put your specimens on top of and to absorb water and any other liquids that you put into your hydration chamber to hydrate your specimen. You have a do and don't guide. This may also be printed on your pinning guide, depending on which way I printed it. You have your pinning guide, and then you have your anatomy chart. So this is the anatomy chart. We're going to go over it really quick. So when the butterfly has its wings closed, you may think of it as the back of its wings, but it's actually the front. It's if I was facing forward towards you. And that makes more sense when you look at the legs that would be here. They're not shown because in this picture I had ripped them off, which I will go over for hydration. And then when the wings are open, that's if you spread your arms and someone's looking at you from behind. The posterior is going to be the bottom of the wings, and the anterior is going to be from the head. Okay, so we have our antenna, we have our head and our proboscis. Obviously our eye is also there. The thorax is going to be equivalent to your chest, and the abdomen is going to be equivalent to your stomach. The fringe is the bottom wing. It's the little waves that are on some butterfly wings. They don't all have that. The forewing is going to be equivalent to the top. Now, butterflies obviously also have legs, but if you're thinking of them in terms of your own human body, these would be the arms, the hind wings would be the legs, just in relation to the location of those limbs. Obviously, they're not the same. And right here, you're going to see a red dot, and that's where you ideally want your pin to be, which is your anchor pin. That's what's going to hold your whole butterfly down. Moving on to hydration, you have your hydration chamber. So you're going to open it up. You're going to fold one of your napkins in quarters. You can also use other things. I like to use non-stick medical gauze pads. There's a lot of options here, but this is fine, and I included it just in case you didn't have anything that was sterile. You're going to use just a little bit of bottled or boiled water. I also prefer to put a little bit of vodka or Everclear or alcohol in these just to deter molding and rot. Okay, you want to make sure it's damp. You can see that it is wet, but it's not dripping. There's no excess moisture around the edges. Then you're going to take your butterfly specimen. I'm going to be using the specimen shown in the anatomy chart, the Graphium docen. And the first thing I'm going to do is actually fold this paper up. This is also glassine paper, and if you run out of glassine strips and you don't have any more yet, this can be used to pin your butterfly in a pinch. And I'll just tear off a little bit there so it's the right width. I'm just going to lay this right here. And that's going to act as a barrier in between your butterfly's wings and the wet material, because we don't want them to lay directly on it, but we do want their abdomen to be in contact. So being very careful, I like to grasp my butterfly by the closest part of their wing to their abdomen, and I tear off their legs. This does a few things. It helps your butterfly hydrate quicker. And it also keeps them from being in the way when you're going to glue it down on your canvas later. If you're doing a scientific pinning, you're going to keep the top 2 legs, or if you're doing a very realistic mount where you're also positioning the legs to look like it's landed on something, you can keep them. I don't like to take the legs off afterwards because you run the risk of tearing the entire abdomen apart or ripping off a wing. So then we're just going to put the abdomen in contact with the paper. And you're going to have your wing leaning against it so your wings are not in contact, and then you're just going to close it up. I didn't put any alcohol in this because it's just a demonstration, but normally I would put just a few drops. You're going to wait 48 hours. If you're using warm or hot water, you can start trying at 24 hours. We're going to come back and learn how to pin. That has been 24 to 48 hours. I'm going to prep my pinning board before I start messing with my butterfly. To do that, I'm going to open up my test tube and take out my pins. You're going to notice that one of your pins is different. This is what we're calling the anchor pin. That's the one you're putting directly in your butterfly's body. The rest of these are just here to hold down the glassine paper. You'll notice that these are thicker than your anchor pin. And while they are suitable for some specimens, and including this one, they are not suitable for all specimens as they may be too large. I've only included one anchor pin in this kit because it's suitable for all the specimens included, but you can always buy entomology pins online. This is a size 2, and it's the one that I prefer, generally speaking, as it's appropriate for most specimens. If you have a very thick-bodied butterfly or moth or other insect, you're going to want something bigger, just so it can hold it in place a little bit better. Now, I'm probably not going to use all these pins because I've been doing this a while, but I did include extra ones just in case someone's having a hard time and they want to really make sure that their butterfly doesn't shift. So there are 30 pins in here, plus your anchor pin. Okay, and you want to have 2 glassine strips ready. And now we're going to open up our hydration chamber and we're going to test for readiness. You can grab this with your hands, but if you're squeamish about it just getting it out, you can always grab with your tweezers. Make sure you're grabbing the abdomen and not the wings. Now you're going to get a really close grip on the abdomen just right here, right below the wings, and you're going to just push a little bit. If the wings separate like that easily and they flex, you're ready. If you start pushing and it's hard, or you start to hear even a little bit of a cracking noise, immediately stop and hydrate for longer. So now that we've pushed our wings apart, I also like to gently flex them forward, just the forewings, just a little bit, to help in the spreading process. If your head is conky and sideways, you can also flex that just a little bit. Do not do it aggressively. You will break the head off. We're going to get our anchor pin, and we're from the front with the wings flexed. You're going to slide it into the thorax, and it can be a little tricky. You want to make sure that your fingers are not pressed together like this, because you can poke your finger pretty hard. As you can see, the pin is coming through. I like to make it come through about 1/2 inch. And then you're just going to center it on your board and stick it straight down, as you can see there. Now the first thing I'm going to do is get a piece of glassine paper and put it in between the wings. You want to make sure it's behind your anchor pin, not in front of it. And you want to make sure that your antennas are also in front of it and not being pulled down the wing. And what I like to do is just gently use the front of the glassine paper and the back of the wing to just slightly move the wing forward. And then I'm going to use a few pins to just hold this down into a basic position, just to get it out of the way while I work on the other side. You're going to do the same thing on this side, avoiding the antenna and the pin. And this is the side that you want to make sure that you are actually positioning the way you want it to look. So once you have your wings down in a way that you like, you're going to hold the wing down with your fingers over the paper very gently. If you don't like how they look, you can always lightly adjust them with your fingers. You could use your tweezers. I'm not really a fan of doing that. And then you're just going to place your pins all the way around the perimeter of the wing. I like to get pretty close to make sure that there's a nice tight pressure on the wing. You don't want your glassine paper to buckle. That's going to cause buckling in your wings. So I like to be really close around the edges. I normally don't use this many pins, but for the sake of the beginner video, I'm going to, just so you can see what I mean. Now I'm going to remove the pins on this side, and I'm going to make this side match the other one. This is where you can get more finicky and decide, you know, oh, I'd like this way, or maybe I wasn't really a fan of how it looked, and you can start twisting it around just a little bit. And the whole time, you're going to be using your hands to gently but firmly hold down the wing. You don't want to be rubbing your fingers back and forth or using a lot of pressure, because you can crack your wing or rub off a ton of the antenna, which isn't the, a ton of the scales, which isn't the end of the world, but it doesn't look very good. And I've accidentally pinned my antenna inside of this one, so I'm going to just undo one pin and use that pin to slide that out. Okay, I'm also going to redo this pin because it's not in a great position for me doing the antenna. Make sure you save at least 4 of your pins to do the antenna. You're going to be making an X, and you're going to be manipulating the antenna in between underneath. So I like to come from behind, place the antenna in between. I will do another video in the future showing this better, I promise. And then just use that to hold the antenna down. You're going to do the same thing on the other side. There you go. You're going to wait at least 72 hours if you have a very nice, warm, dry climate to unpin this. I would recommend a week just to really make sure that all that moisture has drawn out. If you need to do it sped up, if you have a portable heater that is not gas, but rather a plug-in or battery operated, you can have it in the same small room, like a closet or a bathroom, and don't have it pointed directly at your butterfly, but just close to it to help speed up the process. Now that it's been about a week since this specimen has been drying, it's time to unpin. A couple of really important things to note is that you're going to want to do your antenna and your anchor pin last, and your anchor pin you might not even undo at all, and I'll explain why at the end. How I like to unpin is I like to keep my finger on the outside of the glassine paper and hold it down and just take out my pins. Now ideally you have like the lid off of your container off to the side here, just to keep them in order so they don't roll off and you end up stepping on them. Ask me how I know. So you're just gonna have your finger by the pin. Sorry about the moving camera, I'm not on the best setup here. Be really careful around the pins that hold your antenna. I'm going to keep my glassine paper over my wing for now, just in case. Sometimes when I pull out pins, I'm a little bit too enthusiastic and I might drop it on this side. So I'd prefer to just keep that wing as protected as possible. You're going to do the same thing on this side, just pulling them out one by one, keeping a pressure on the outside of the wing. Okay, so now I'm going to take out my antenna pins, and you can see here that one of the antenna pins is actually in the glassine paper, so I'm going to take that one out first very carefully. And then I'm going to take out the other 4 pins actually, that are holding the antenna down. And then I'm going to gently slide my glassine paper away from the body. Now, as you can see here, oh my gosh, there's been some transfer of scales onto my paper. I was definitely pushing down too hard and being way too enthusiastic about doing pressing on my glassine paper, and I might have rubbed back and forth on it, but the butterfly still looks pretty freaking good. I'm not sad about it. It looks fine. Now you're going to leave your anchor pin until last, and that's because if you take your anchor pin out while your glassine paper is still down, when you pull up, it's going to pull the entire body of the butterfly and you might break your wings off. That's not ideal. It is fixable. But there you go. Now you have a fully pinned butterfly. Some people will keep it on the board just to ensure that their wings don't get warped, or if they drop this, they are less likely to break their butterfly. You can also keep them in a Tupperware with, like I like to do a napkin on the bottom, and then I keep the pin out of the body so that way they're ready to use right away. So the last portion of our pinning class is going to go over the oddity care. So there's two sections. There's a piece that's already been put on display, so something you've put in a frame, a dome, a cloche, however you're displaying it. And then you have your piece that has not been displayed yet, okay? So on the display side, once you've already finished your piece, these are the do's, the don'ts, and issues you may have, how to fix them. So you do want to make sure you're hanging on a secure nail or a screw. No tacks or tape. Use command hooks if the weight is appropriate. Use museum gel to secure a dome or a cloche. You put it in little balls underneath, and then you press down, and it keeps it from falling over if you bump into it or a cat or something is messing with it. And then every month you want to just do a quick check for damage or signs of pest waste, which is frass. It looks like dust, or holes in your specimen. You don't want to hang it in direct sunlight because this can cause fading. You don't want to display it in a humid environment like a bathroom or a kitchen because this can encourage mold or reheight your specimen, causing the wings to curl, or even pests to become more active because of the rehydration. If issues you can run into are broken bug piece, like a antenna, a leg falling off a wing. You can use school glue or super glue. Take your time, use tweezers. I also like to use toothpicks to apply a small bead of glue to the area instead of just pouring it on. Mold, you're going to freeze for 48 hours and then use an acetone dipped paintbrush to remove the spores and then freeze again. I literally just get like a cap full of acetone, and then I dip my paintbrush in it and I gently brush away at the mold, and then I just freeze it again. For pests, you're also going to freeze for 48 hours. Remove all signs of pests, so eggs, larvae, the actual insect itself, poop. Dust off your insect with a dry paintbrush to remove any dust or anything, and then freeze it again. For DIY, you're going to want to store your insects in a cool, flat, dry place. You don't want them to be hot or humid. Make sure that you keep them in an airtight container like a Ziploc bag, a deli container, or keep them in a freezer. You can also add crushed mothballs for more protection against pests. Use a mix of filtered or bottled water, at least 70% alcohol, to hydrate your specimens. This is going to discourage mold growth. What you don't want to do is storing them in an open container. You even don't want to store them like this inside the paper. This will not protect your specimen from pests. They can still get in and they'll chew through the paper. Don't use plain tap water or water from outside. This could have mold spores in it. It could have small bugs or just other microorganisms it's not going to mix well. Boil your water if you don't have bottled. And then you don't want to leave your specimens in the hydration chamber for longer than 48 hours without checking. So some specimens might need more than 48 hours, like a really big moth or a really large beetle. Just make sure you're checking. Issues you may run into are greasy bugs. A lot of moths and butterflies, especially the males, have very greasy abdomens. You can soak those in pure unscented acetone, not nail polish remover. It's usually scented and it has crap in it. Just the plain stuff you can get from Home Depot. You're going to let it fully dry again before adhering it to a surface. Just a jump scare warning, sometimes when you put a butterfly inside of acetone, it will change color. That's because the color that you see is usually not real pigment. It's structured color. So it actually is just depending on the way light is reflecting off of the surface of the butterfly. So you may see a color change. As it dries out, it will go back to normal. For pests, you're going to freeze for 48 hours, remove the pests, larvae, the frass, freeze again, and then you're going to store it in an airtight and dry container. Add mothballs for further protection. And then down here it just says, if you need more guidance or if you want me to repair something, if it's feasible. I do live in Texas, so shipping might not be an option depending on what it is. You can just message me on Instagram or email. Instagram is going to be quicker, and then it just has my handles down here. That is going to be the end of our pinning class video. Thank you so much for everyone who's watched, who's supported me over the years, and who has bought this kit. Bye!